I met with a mother whose son left 20 years ago. She hasn't heard from him for 20 years. More likely, he's probably not alive, but he thought he could get a better life and came to the U.S. and unfortunately probably did not make it. And there's so many stories like that.
I am a proud American. I'm a proud American. But I'm Cuban heritage. I'm the firstborn in the United States on my mother's side. And on my father's side, my gosh, going all the way back to Scotland, England, and God only knows where else. And I'm a hodgepodge of so many other things. My producers are Greek and Irish. This is what makes America, America, right? Is that fabric, that mix of all of us that make up this beautiful fabric, this tapestry of people from all over the world. And I don't want to take away from that. When I cover immigration, I want to honor those immigrants. They're my family. They're your family. They're the people that left everything behind, no matter where they came from, to be a part of something new. And that takes a lot of courage. And that takes a lot of hope and prayer, because you're taking your family away from everything that they know into a whole new world, where they have to learn a new language and everything else. Greedy corporations, self-proclaimed woke idealists, they've hijacked this narrative, this story, this divine story of our nation. And we're diving head first, folks, into this very deep problem. And I want to be able to share with you some solutions. And I brought my friend, Veronica Birkenstock, on the show today to do that. She is somebody who works diligently at doing things the right way. We're always hearing about the wide open border and all the illegals, and that is a huge, huge problem for us. And we've seen the humanitarian crisis at the border. We've seen what has happened, especially when it comes to children being trafficked or modern day slavery. We've seen the drug cartels become the middlemen, right, of the American immigration system. And a lot of that failure rests in the Biden administration and in many other previous administrations. And by the way, in Congress, that hasn't resolved this problem for the American people. That's what we hired them to do. And they're not doing their job. But there are some hopeful signs, some areas where we could borrow from what is already occurring and help resolve this crisis. And I believe in that. I believe in finding solutions. And I want to explore the immigration issue in its entirety. And I hope you'll enjoy this deep dive with me today. Folks, gold and silver allow you to protect what you've worked so hard for, and it gives you back the control and the privacy that you need, right? Diversify, diversify, diversify. That's why I love Allegiance Gold. I love the fact that Allegiance Gold is a sponsor of the Sara Carter Show. Look, don't just trust me. Do your own research. Do your own investigation. But right now, for those of you who listen to the Sara Carter Show, you'll get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that I sent you. Just tell them Sara sent you. Allegiance Gold has the highest ratings in the industry, 5 stars with TrustLink. They're AAA rated with the Business Consumer Alliance, and they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. You can't beat that. Get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. So don't wait, call or click today, 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, SARA, no H, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, folks. I think we know that now, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, SARA, or protectwithsara.com. So I am blessed in my life to meet so many wonderful people. And one of those people is Veronica Birkenstock. She and I have become great friends over the years. She is a true patriot, and she's, in my opinion, an immigration expert. She's a member of the board of directors of the American Conservative Union and president of Practical Employee Solutions, where she actually does more for the Western Hemisphere than most people can ever imagine. And that is bringing jobs to people in places like Central America and other parts of the Western Hemisphere, bringing them here, getting them work, and they go back home. It's completely legal. It is the way of doing things the right way. Thank you so much, Veronica, for agreeing to be on the Sarah Carter Show. You're awesome.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm so pleased to get to see you. I haven't seen you since January. This is a great way to meet back up.
I know. So I definitely think we need to meet back up. And, it's so hot in Texas right now. Maybe we should find like a place like Alaska or something to meet up. Maybe we'll go back to San Francisco. I know it's a little crazy there, but it was so cold. And now I get it. The coldest summer I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. Isn't that a song or something?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Because like 103 here. I want to talk to you a little bit about, first, I want you to explain to people what it is that your company does, because I think it's just amazing, the work that you've done, but just kind of lay it out what Practical Employee Solutions does.
Well, we're primarily in the space of the H-2B visa program, and H-2B is a seasonal temporary visa program that authorizes employers and foreign nationals to partner together to solve an employment problem here in the U.S. Employers have to work through 4 different government agencies in order to get approval for this. So you start out with the Department of Labor, and Department of Labor basically is the worker protection side, where they're making sure that the wages and conditions of employment offered are not adversely affecting the market in that metropolitan service area. And they also determine what the wages must be paid. So the idea of these people receiving slave wages, which we've heard so much about, is absolutely not true. Most of the H-2B workers are $16, $17, $18 an hour, even some more than that. But it's the average wage of anybody in that occupation in that geographical location. So it's not a starting wage, it's the average wage. So you could have people being surveyed that had just started, some in their year, some in there for 10 or 15 years. So again, it's the average wage. Employer has to go through a labor market test to ensure that there are not sufficient U.S. workers, or there are sufficient workers in that area they're wanting those jobs. So it's an encumbersome process, and that's what my company does, is hold the hand of the employer through this entire labor certification process, all the way through the actual worker arriving. So once we start with Department of Labor and we get certification, then we go to USCIS. And then USCIS approves a petition, which is the authority to grant the workers to come here. And the last couple of years, we've been expanding operations for new employees coming into the program in what we call the Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. So those are the 3 countries. And there's been 20,000 carve-out visas for those countries to encourage employers to go there to seek a labor market. And we've been very successful there. This year, we're about 17,000 new jobs in those countries. And they're pretty much spread out through all 3 countries. I mean, they all have gotten their fair share. So it's not one country favored over another. There are some, like in Honduras, there's an area in Roatan that speaks English much more clear and better than some other parts of the Northern Triangle. But a lot of our hospitality employers love the Honduran labor force, whereas landscaping and all other occupations find great workers, forestry, landscaping, construction, a lot of our outdoor entertainment, they prefer workers from El Salvador and Guatemala. But the employers get to decide which country they want to go to.
See, I think a lot of Americans don't even realize that this even really exists, because we're constantly hearing from the leftists and others, even some on the right, well, we're leaving the border wide open because, of this problem with the labor market. We don't have enough people here. And, and I say, no, we've got to do it the legal way, because it's the only way to protect both the American employer as well as the employee that is coming in to work. If you have people here that are working illegally, that have no visas, that have no oversight, that don't have a Veronica Birkenstock, to oversee what's going on and assist with that labor force, then you have people that are abused and people that are taken advantage of and people that become part of what modern day slavery is about. This is, $17, $18 on average an hour is a lot of money when you think about it going back. Some people, Americans don't even make that money. Some Americans don't even make that. And they're taking it back home, and it becomes a part of the Western Hemisphere, and it becomes a part of building up the Western Hemisphere so that we don't have this problem with illegal immigration, the economic illegal immigration that we see coming to the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one solution. Absent a legal way of doing something when there's a need for it, you create an incentive for people to come illegally. And that's what's happened in our southern border. All these people coming across, somebody's employing them. We know that. They just can't come here and not work. So someone is employing them. These workers have zero employee protections. It's doubtful they even have workers' compensation. They certainly are not, they don't have the same rights and benefits as an American citizen would, or someone who has a legal right to work in the country. In many cases are exploited. But this program, I call it the HOPE program, because it gives the people in these countries who really, truly want to come here and work, maybe not necessarily immigrate here forever, but come and go according to the work authorization of work period, but go back home and they build their communities there. They give back. We call it the Millionaire Road. And they actually become the 1%ers in their home countries. And Sarah, I would say probably 95% of that money goes back home. They spend very little here. They spend enough to get by as far as their living expenses. But the goal has always been for these workers to come here, and they're sacrificing a lot by leaving their families. Think about moms who are leaving kids for 9, 10 months. That's a long time to be away from your child. But they're coming here to make a better life for themselves. They have the worker protections. They don't have to worry about that. They also are paying into our Social Security system. They would be eligible for it, after so many, I think it's 40 quarters, which will take them a long time because most of them are here 6, 7, 8 months. So it takes longer than the 10 years normally to get vested. But if they're here for, 15 years or more, they would be vested into a Social Security system just like you and I. But if they're not, that money still goes into the Social Security system and it's shoring up our program. Whereas illegals coming here, they're not paying into Social Security. They're not, but a lot of them are benefiting from some of those programs because they bring their kids and they end up being on our social welfare programs without ever investing in them. So to me, it is one solution to avoid some of what you see coming across. And
what can we do to make it better then? Let's, before I get into the NGOs and everything, I want to stick with this because I think this is foreign, literally, so to speak, to so many people that live in the United States. They don't realize or they don't have concepts of the worker program the same way that, an employer that would hire these workers would. I mean, everybody automatically thinks, and I think wrongly, that people coming from Central America or South America, wherever, are coming here illegally, that they're, they must be working illegal. No, they're not all of them, but there are a lot that are coming in. How can we do this so that there's more balance, that we can expand these programs if needed? Because I think American workers, I agree with you, need to come first. But how do we do that? And why is it that the Republican and Democrats can't get on board with the solution here?
Because it's a misunderstood. I mean, this program is called non-immigrant, and most everybody understands the word immigrant or immigration. They don't understand the word non in front of that. It's like saying something's toxic and non-toxic. One of those will kill you. But the hot topic, especially when you're dealing with the Hill, because the Hill never really wants to fix anything. They like to Band-Aid it to death if they do anything. And they have done some good things. So I'm not, disparaging them at all. But it's just such a hot topic. Nobody wants to fix it. The last immigration reform program we saw was in 1986 when President Reagan said, if you hire an illegal, you're going to jail. I don't know anybody who went to jail for hiring illegal, but that's why I got into this business, because I was an HR director in a hotel and I didn't want to go to jail, and I took him for his word. So I found out about this program. So the problem with expanding is it's congressionally mandated. The Congress back in 1990 said we're going to limit this to 66,000. So we have more zip codes than that. So you pretty adverse, effectively, any marketplace. I mean, I argue all day long with someone that says you're taking jobs away from Americans. Well, you only give us 66,000 of these visas. How could that impact anything? It's like putting a drop of water in Lake Michigan and telling someone you change the water temperature there. It's not measurable. But Congress in the last few years has been able to give us discretionary additional visas. So this past year, we got the most we've ever gotten since 2007. 2007 was the largest year of the program that I'm aware of. So they gave us those numbers back. The demand even far exceeded what we were given, but we did double that number almost to another 64,000 on top of the 66,000. And the carve out was for the Northern Triangle. They took 20,000 of those and said those specifically can only come from that area. And that actually was the Biden administration who did that, because and I think they have enough data to say that this program now is a deterrent instead of coming across illegally. That there is hope. There is a way to come legally. And I've met with family members workers who are already in the States, and how they're so thankful that their family member could come legally, that now they can actually talk to them and they can FaceTime them. They know where they are. They don't have to worry about a coyote getting them across the water or getting them across the land, wherever they're going. They actually know where their family member is, and it's such a blessing for them. I met with a mother whose son left 20 years ago. She hasn't heard from him for 20 years. More likely, he's probably not alive, but he thought he could get a better life and came to the U.S. and unfortunately probably did not make it. And there's so many stories like that. But to me, this is it's a solution to a problem in many ways. We do need more visas. Congress is coming around, but it's taken a lot of effort. We have been on that hill since 2003, singing our story that there's such a demand. Give us these visas, because we're not taking away U.S. jobs. We're paying the average wage. They're protected by U.S. work. They're actually more protected than the U.S. worker in so many ways. The workers are coming, it's forbidden for them to pay fees. The employer pays for everything except the passport. The worker has to pay for their own passport. Everything else is paid for by the employer. And employers have to have housing arranged when they get here, so not a burden on these communities or society. Once they arrive, they immediately begin to work. Most of them do get overtime. A lot of our landscapers in the summertime get tons of overtime. So they make really good money. And it's the best foreign aid program. Instead of us sending hundreds of thousands of dollars down to El Salvador, why not send jobs? Have them come here, work, provide a good service here, but then go back home and help their own communities.
Well, it seems like common sense, if you ask me. And as I'm watching our border and just, Veronica, you're here in Texas. You see what's happening too. Our border's wide open in our state, even though the Texas DPS, the governor, so many others have tried to seal that. The federal government is not doing its part in keeping people from coming across. Now, here we have the Biden administration actually doing something proactive to stop, and maybe curb illegal immigration and illegal workforce in America. Why is it that we can't take it one step further? Why is it that we can't shut down the border and then, or find a way to revamp immigration so that we can have a more linear, and legal way of bringing people into the country instead of making the cartels and the human traffickers the middlemen?
Well, there has to be a concerted effort to look to see why workers are coming here. They're coming here to work. That's why they're coming across that border. There's no other reason why they're coming across, unless they are, a mule that's bringing over, drugs or paraphernalia or even trafficking humans. But that's why they're coming here. So that you have to figure out why they're coming, and then look how can we make that legal. And whether it's the H-2 program or the H-2A program or some other visa program or even a new visa program, whatever it is, you got to find a legal way to do it. Absent that, people will, if the need is there, people will do illegal things. And right now, there is no penalty for a person hiring someone illegally. Now, if you go on H-2 program, you are subject to all kinds of audit. You have a test under penalty of perjury, all kinds. There's a list. There's an attestation that's got 30 line items on it. You can go to jail for someone think you willfully or misrepresented a statement when you probably had no intent of doing that, but someone accuses you of doing that. I mean, you're audited to death. But no one ever comes after a person hired illegal. I mean, millions of people have come across that border. Have you heard of one raid? One person that's been even sent home? I certainly haven't heard an employer going to jail or being fined at $10,000 per day for hiring illegal. I mean, there's no.
No, I was going to say, this is exactly what every single Border Patrol agent that I've spoken with, every single ICE officer that has common sense that I've spoken with says to me all the time. Look, if the employers of these illegal immigrants are not being charged for hiring illegal immigrants under the law, then what's the incentive? I mean, what will get them to stop? Nothing will get them to stop. So why do the employers that work for you, that work with you, why do they do it? Are they just like, look, we want to do it the right way. We want the best workers. Is that what it is? And then I want to go into the NGOs with you because I think it's so important to talk about that.
Well, our employers use it obviously because they are concerned about doing it the legal way and the right way. And they invest hundreds of thousands. This is not an inexpensive program to do. So, and it takes a lot of time, and you're going through so many government agencies. You're providing so much detail about your company, really a lot of invasive, financial information that is absolutely subject to public, records. and can be actually FOIA requested. So there is a great risk in doing it, but there's also a calmness and an assurance that you've done it the legal way. But a lot of our employers also are federal contractors who have to e-verify. And the only way they can actually be a federal contractor and be in compliance is to be able to show that their entire workforce is legal. So that's a big incentive, especially for a lot of the major landscaping companies, because they are state or maybe county, state, and federal employers at that time. And then most all of our hotels have a federal rate that they offer, federal employees or state employees. They become federal contractors, or if they do conferences or meetings for, people who are related to some state government or federal government. So that's probably one of the bigger reasons as well. But our employers most of them have been in the program for a long time, and they've seen it grow. A lot of them are very discouraged because it takes so long with so many different government agencies involved. And you hear about funding and how long. I mean, we filed applications in December, and the regs, interestingly enough, say the Department of Labor has to process that in 7 days. Well, we got 6.5 months later before some of these applications are processed. So an employer may have needed workers in April. They're still waiting to get them now because of the slowness in the processing and the hangups at every one of these federal agencies. It's not just one, it's all of them, because nobody in government, no matter what country they're in, defines sense of urgency like you and I do. So a lot of I would probably suggest that probably a lot of employers don't do this because of the costs involved and how long it takes, and there's no assurances you're going to get your workers when you need them.
So it needs to be revamped. It needs to be revamped.
It has to be revamped. Now, we've petitioned Congress. We've hired lobbyists. We just did a fly-in back in June in D.C. We have another meeting next week with USAID. USAID has been a big partner in helping us expand the Northern Triangle, providing essential funding with the help of the NGOs. I know we're getting ready to talk about that, but it's a collaboration of a lot of people, and there are good people in all administrations that have really tried to help fix this problem because they understand it. I mean, President Trump's a user of this program. His hotels use this program and have for years, so he certainly understands. But it has become a political hot potato, and nobody wants to touch it. So they'll just, in a spending bill, normally is how it's solved, or some solution is offered in a spending bill where they'll give the authority to the agencies to issue additional visas. And then that ends up being, a spending package never gets passed until December because they always kick can down the road and omnibuses bill sometime in December. So, and that's been going on for a long time. But until we have a Congress, and this is a congressional mandated program, until Congress is serious about actually fixing this, and using the data, we've got 60 years worth of data. So it's not a new program. We got 60 years of data in the H-2A program and the H-2 program that the solution is someone just needs to sit down and say, this works and this is make it better and get I can solve this problem tomorrow. I have enough. I've been doing it for 30 years. I know what works. I could solve this tomorrow.
At least the biggest portion of it you could. Folks, Allegiance Gold. Remember Allegiance Gold? I keep telling you, it is a phenomenal company and a sponsor of the Sara Carter Show. And right now, I said it earlier, you could get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. My friends at Allegiance Gold can help you protect your IRA, your 401k with physical gold and silver. And guess what? They can deliver it securely right to your front door. So get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. So don't wait, call or click today. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, no H, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, folks, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, S-A-R-A, or protectwithsara.com. I keep telling everyone, and this is, and tell me if I'm wrong, Veronica, but I've told you this before too. We should be the envy of the world. The Western Hemisphere has everything. We've got resources, geographic beauty. We have great cultures. We have so much richness in the Western Hemisphere, and yet it is completely wasted. And to the point where we're not nearshoring enough. We're not bringing all of, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. I met someone who is heading to Beijing that is actually concerned. They're running a business and they're bringing some of that business, actually manufacturing business, to Central America. I met them in San Francisco and they filled me in on that. But there is a lot of concern that we're just not utilizing the resources that we have here, both human as well as natural resources. And one of the issues that I see is what you're saying. It's like Congress. If Congress doesn't get serious about it, if our government doesn't get serious about it, none of this is going to get fixed. And there are solutions right before our eyes. Right before our eyes.
It's not a new solution. It's been around for 60 plus years. So you can look at the data all through the years and see how it's worked. And, obviously the program has been enhanced and worker protections have been put in. And I can tell you, there is not a single employer that I work with that is not for worker protection. I mean, that's why they're doing this program the legal way, because they want to make sure workers are protected. It's the employers who hire them illegally who provide zero worker protections. So a lot of the anger and the misunderstanding around H2M actually stems from the illegal activity, not the people who are doing it the right way. So when you talk about people coming across the border, honestly, a lot of Americans do not understand the difference between an illegal immigrant and an immigrant. They just think they're all foreigners. That's all they. How many times have you heard, "Oh, you're just bringing those foreigners in here. You're taking jobs away from Americans," which is not. Why would any employer want to go through 4 government agencies, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars if they had a U.S. worker knocking on their door?
No, that's exactly true. That's a great point.
It costs zero to hire a U.S. worker. I mean, obviously you got to train them, but you got to train the foreign national too. So that's the same. It's not even apples to oranges there, but it's a solution, and it's very frustrating. But I will have to say, in the last 5 years, we've seen a very positive movement in the government, even though it's slow. There is a positive government motion and action in place where the numbers have increased. There have been additional workers' incentives and oversight and protections in place. And then we've had a significant investment in the Northern Triangle. And I know that's been a collaborative agreement with the Northern Triangle countries. There's been multiple, MOUs signed between these countries where the Northern Triangle countries are also partner in investing in their workforce. I don't know if you've been to Guatemala lately, but Guatemala probably has the best technical training facility that I have ever seen. I mean, they have robotics. They've got auto mechanics, even on electrical vehicles. They're actually training people how to work on the EVs now. They've got the latest and greatest technology. A lot of the CAD machines and all the highly advanced machinery is coming in from Germany, like the latest edition. I mean, I've taken employers out who are in this business. We don't even have this. They're so far advanced. So these countries are investing in this technology that can train people so much less expensive, and then they can use these employees that are trained to come here and do jobs that we don't have to worry about being trained. They're already trained.
That's one of the things that I have been discussing on the podcast for a long time. It's like, this is not about taking anything away from American workers and American ingenuity. And I think we have a lot to learn, by the way, from other nations. I've been traveling around the country, and what I've seen in some of our major cities is horrific. It's worse than anything. I mean, I tell people I've been to Guatemala City, and I haven't seen it as not even close. Or I'm in El Salvador, the same way to what I just saw in San Francisco, where whole areas of the city, people are addicted to fentanyl and they're living on the streets, and it's just kind of a nightmare scenario. So that aside, I believe that we have to build up the Western Hemisphere to protect ourselves from foreign adversaries that are coming in our way. Part of the criticism, though, Veronica, comes from people I'm talking to that say, look, USAID, although it's investing in some good programs, it's also spending money that is, there is no oversight on, that they're pushing for this, the UN is pushing for these migration, open borders policies where we don't have any sovereignty. What can you say about that? And NGOs like Catholic Charities and others that are also pouring in millions of dollars into, the migration movement. And it looks like they're aiding and abetting more than they are stopping it.
In any government program, there's, abuse and there's greatness that comes out of those. I can't attest to what USAID does, but they do stuff all the way around the world. I can only talk about my experience with them. When they came to us 3 years ago and said, look, we want to move into the Northern Triangle, there was no infrastructure there to do that. It's like, you can give us 10,000 visas, but there's no infrastructure to recruit. There's no infrastructure to train. There's not even an embassy that has staff to even process H-2Bs. These are kinds of things that, you have to plan for. You just can't say, okay, today we're going to do that. So over the last 3 years, USAID has invested heavily in, especially in the Northern Triangle, the portion that I've been involved in. And they have brought those resources there. They've contracted with local, agencies there, but also U.S. government agencies have gone in there and partner with a lot of the NGOs. And the NGOs are the non-government organizations. And most of those are faith-based. Not all, but most of them are faith-based organizations that know the people, know the communities, know what the needs are. And they have a trust level because there's been so much, evilness around the coyote portion where people, you walk into a community, I've got jobs in America, the red lights go off. It's like, oh my God, is this another person trying to take my child, take my son, take my husband, my loved one on a coyote experience? And they call it the journey there. That's what the new word is. They call it and we don't want to do journey. We want to make sure we do it the right way. So the NGOs were able to come in there and, as a ministry in so many ways saying, look, this is a legal way. You're working through the Ministry of Labor, you're working through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So this is a program that's been sanctioned by the U.S. government, but also by our own government. And we've seen that work when you've got that type of partnership where the NGOs go in, they find the workers, they refer them, the Ministry of Labor or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and vets that worker to make sure that, they're not a criminal or someone who's abused a legal system somewhere, whether it's been illegally coming to our U.S. or maybe not even paying child support in their home country. I mean, they really do vet these workers as best possible. So all that, what an employer now doesn't have to worry about doing that there's some level of comfort that the person coming is not a bad person. So that's been my experience. What USAID has done, and they've done.
They do a lot of vetting as well.
Yes.
They set up the structure for the vetting. This is what I want to know because you talked about it being a drop in like the lake, right? Lake Michigan. It's like 60,000 or 66,000 visas that are approved for the year thereabouts. And it really is just a drop because we've got millions of people showing up. We don't even know who they are. And so is that the reason why? Because if someone's applying for this visa and they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting and they may not be in that system and cleared, they're just like, oh, forget it. I'm just going to come illegally.
That's why we've asked for increase in numbers. The first year we were down like 7,000 and they increased them to 12,000. And this year it increased to 20,000. So we make a big deal about those increase in numbers and increase in opportunities. So we are still being we could have 1 million visas, but you can't process 1 million visas. That would be crazy. You just can't do that. That's not humanly. The resources aren't there to be able to do that. So you got to take baby steps. And that's what USAID has done because it was an enormous investment in getting this up off the ground. It's not just the recruiting section and the vetting section, but just getting the application for the visa is 18 pages long. All these people have never seen a computer. They certainly have never toggled through a federal application form before where they're asking all kinds of, questions about, have any family members in the U.S.? Have you ever committed a crime? Are you a terrorist? Have you ever a member of a terrorist organization? Have you ever committed any type of federal crime? These are very invasive questions, so it's an application that anybody who's seeking a visa has to come into this country. And so it's 18 pages long. It takes about an hour to do each one. So you're thinking about 20,000 hours just alone filling out those applications. Man hours it takes to be able to do that. So it's a long process communicating with these workers because most of them live in rural areas throughout these countries. And we hold mass hires where we will go to Mexico City. I'm not sorry, Mexico City, but Guatemala City, or we'll go to San Salvador where USAID provides the transportation from their little communities all the way to the cities where the employers will then meet and we'll hold a mass hire where we can have 34 employers there interviewing a couple thousand people in a 2 or 3 day period. So all that's being financed and administrated and organized by partners with USAID's assistance and help and making sure this goes the way it should go.
So you said earlier, and I love this, you said, I could solve this problem like tomorrow, you've been working in the industry for a long time and I believe in finding solutions. I don't believe in just putting blame on organizations or people. I believe that we can put the blame on the administration. Yes, I believe that this administration has left the border wide open. It's become a significant problem for the United States, both on a national security level and certainly on a humanitarian crisis level. But there are these programs that are there that have been proven that work, that maybe could be expanded, that could be an answer or a solution to a future problem. What would your solution be on the whole? What would it be?
For now, I know there's at least 700,000 need for employers who want to do it the legal way without any marketing, because most of us don't market this program because there's not enough visas. So tomorrow, I could easily place 700,000 people for next year. That's the demand that we know of. If it's marketed and employers are aware this is a legal way to do it, it could be up in the millions. But the problem with that is the infrastructure. The infrastructure in these countries is not quite there. Now, one of the good things we like about El Salvador is the new ambassador, Ambassador Duncan, was the consul general in Mexico prior to his new appointment. And in Mexico, they provide more H-2B visas than any other, and H-2A more than any other country. So they've got the knowledge and the ability to be able to staff up fairly quickly and be able to process 15, 20,000 visas a year. Part of the hope that with Ambassador Duncan moving to El Salvador is that they will be able to get El Salvador very quickly. And you and I know we have a great friend in the president in El Salvador. I mean, he has turned that country around from being the murder capital of the world now to probably the most safest city in our country in the whole world. But I mean, they're doing great things. They're being very proactive. They're cutting edge on most everything. So I'm hoping that
President Bukele, for everybody out there, President Bukele is, become just probably one of the most popular leaders in all of Central and South America. Now, he is not the most popular leader, though, for the Biden administration.
No, apparently not. But he actually has done great things for that country that allows us to do what the Biden administration has allowed us to be able to increase those numbers. So whether or not politically or not, they have done big things on both sides to make it easier and more profitable and accessible to be able to reach out to the workers in El Salvador to come here. So that part has been a good partnership there. But having Ambassador Duncan there who understands the need, who has the ability to staff up and be able to actually process the visas is a big win for the community. So I would encourage Congress to continue to give us more visas. I mean, that is a solution. We don't have enough visas. I mean, literally, congressional mandates only 66,000, and we know we have more zip codes than that.
Do you think it's because there's a concern right now about all of the movement of illegal immigrants, or was there some kind of impetus that changed the trajectory from what happened the years before?
Well, we are in a recession, but it's not a typical recession. I don't know if you've seen that. I mean, we obviously things cost more, but it hasn't impacted the labor market as bad as it did 2007, 8, 9, or 8, 9. But what we've seen is our employers have increased their numbers across the board. Now, normally the biggest indicator for me is looking what hotels do, because hotels are impacted by everything. I mean, whether it's a terrorist attack, whether it's COVID, or if it's a downturn in the economy, whatever. Hotels are always the first one to impact and the last ones to recover. And my hotels, I've not seen any reduction in their numbers. In fact, their numbers are increasing because the service industry lost so many workers during COVID. People just didn't go back in that industry. Unfortunately, in many of these occupations, those workers, and good for them, they were able to find other occupations and not have to do some of the manual type work that's required in hospitality. But our hotels are suffering greatly. We can't find cooks. We cannot find servers. We're applying for bartenders now. What did you ever think we had that problem finding a bartender?
Bartenders make great tips. I mean, everybody wanted to be a bartender in college. At least I remember that. I wasn't good enough. I was not good at shaking those martinis. I was fine. I was a server. I was a waitress actually for a long time. That's how I made my way. I worked at a grocery store. I worked in hotels, and I worked as a server. I was going to say, when I was in Martha's Vineyard, covering that story, Martha's Vineyard, when they took the busload of migrants there and were letting them go, and all the wealthy people in Martha's Vineyard were like freaking out because they just didn't know what to do. Employers came up to me. There were different employers from that would see me on the street getting ready to do Sean's show. And they walk up to me and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could hire them because I don't have anybody." And I was like, are you serious? There's no Americans applying for the jobs here. They would say, no, we've had to shut our restaurants down earlier. We don't have enough people to clean the rooms. That's what I heard. And this was right after COVID. And so you're saying the problem is still pretty much the same for many employers.
I think the problem for the service level positions and entry level is that it actually gotten worse after COVID. I don't know all the reasons for it, but I do know a lot of the people left those industries or just didn't go back. So that has increased the need. And the younger generation now don't necessarily always want to work in these jobs, which is unfortunate, but there are other opportunities for them. So you can't blame the 22 to 24-year-old not wanting to be the bartender anymore if they have have a better job that's more permanent and more stable for them. So I don't blame them at all. But the need for the workers is very evident. The Department of Labor knows what it is. I mean, the Department of Labor saw on July 3rd, there was over 45,000 applications that were filed for October 1 start dates. That's never happened before. In 60 plus years doing this program, that has never happened. So the anticipation of the need is there. It's not a mystery. The government knows. I mean, Department of Labor knows. USCIS knows. We are supposed to have a meeting next week in D.C. to go over these numbers and what the expectation is for next year. But unless Congress, and Congress is the only body that can fix this, is to increase the numbers and have the courage to stand up and say, we're trying to solve a problem. This is part of our border solution. Unless Congress can agree on that and actually finds this solution or utilizes this solution that got 60 years worth of history on, it's not going to get any better.
And that's the thing. I think that sends a message to the people crossing illegally saying, look, we're going to try to resolve this crisis. But if you stay home, at least you have a chance to have a legal job in the country and to be able to send that money home legally and have a solid background with other employers later to get recycled, to be used again. If you're a good employee, people will use you again and again throughout the seasons. And that really opens up a lot of opportunity for people, guys, in the Western Hemisphere. This is why I have Veronica on the show, because I hear so much and I talk a lot about the complaints we have, but there are some solutions out there. I think immigration is going to be a multi-pronged solution, though, Veronica. I think it's going to require not only doing this and expanding the worker visa program, especially in our hemisphere. I keep emphasizing that. I know there's other places in the world, but I want to start with our hemisphere first. But there's also issues like they've got to do it all at the same time, and they can say, look, we're going to shut down this border. We're going to make it secure. We're going to offer more visas for workers that have been cleared and checked through companies like yours and through the State Department and USAID. And we're going to do things the right way. Any final last words?
It's just, if you're an employer out there, do it the right way. Because if we have louder voices and employers would actually voice their opinion to Congress that we need a legal way or we need a better way than actually hiring these illegals, that will stop. Because I promise you, workers wouldn't be coming across here if somebody wasn't hiring them. And that they're coming. And the H-2 program, every one that you hire, that we're basically saying 12 people don't come. Because most, as you know, Sarah, a lot of these people are multi-families living under one roof. And so if they have one person in their family that comes and works legally in the U.S. and they send that money back home, that gives that whole family hope that they don't have to have someone from their family come across illegally. So for every H-2B, you're basically solving 12 people coming across that border. So if you had up 1 million H-2Bs, that's 12 million that won't come across illegally.
That's a solution.
But it is a solution. And right now, the only limitation is a congressional, allocation of visas. And if Congress will work with us to get this done, we have people like me who have been operating this. I've been doing it for 30 years, and there's others who've been doing it longer than me. We will help find this. We'll help put the infrastructure in place. That's what we did in Northern Triangle. I spent 3 years in Northern Triangle. We opened an office in Honduras to be able to process workers out of there. So the system is in place. We just need the authority and the ability to bring in people legally in larger numbers.
Absolutely. And we need to start prosecuting people who hire people illegally and stop incentivizing that. So that and let them know, hey, we're giving you a fair warning, starting next month, we find out you have illegal workers, you're going to be fined. And then if you don't listen to us, you're going to be charged. And I think you'll watch people turn around pretty quick and have a new perspective on that. Thank you so much, Veronica, for being on the show.
Well, thank you for putting the word out there and being our eyes and ears on that border. You be safe down there. That's very dangerous. I worry about you down there.
Oh, I know you do. I love getting your text messages whenever I'm down there. It makes me feel like I know you pray for me. So, I mean, it was always welcomed.
Oh, well, so you take care and thank you so much. You have a blessed weekend.
You too, Veronica. I hope you'll join me in finding solutions and finding better ways to fix our immigration system and support those people that actually are trying to find a new way to make our country safer, to protect the Western Hemisphere from our adversaries, and to find new solutions to this very real humanitarian crisis and national security crisis that we are facing at our southern border. And by the way, at our northern border many times. If you love today's show and want even more of the Sara Carter Show, make sure you rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe to your favorite podcast app. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on Twitter at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.